I'm JD, and this week on NASA Now, we'll get the inside scoop on NASA's search for extraterrestrial life. But before we get to that, let's find out what else is happening at NASA Now. A team of planet hunters led by astronomers at the University of California, Santa Cruz and the Carnegie Institute of Washington recently announced the discovery of a planet orbiting a nearby star. The planet's orbit places it squarely in the middle of the star's habitable zone, a place where temperatures are not too cold, not too hot, but just right to maintain water and support Earth-like life. If confirmed, this would be the most Earth-like exoplanet yet discovered. Preparations are underway for the November launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery on its scheduled mission to the International Space Station. Tune in next week when we'll focus on the upcoming mission. Now let's blast back to the past.
November 26, 1999, NASA's Galileo spacecraft completes a historic flyby of Jupiter's moon Io. Through Galileo's instruments, scientists determined that some of the volcanoes located on Io are hotter than any on Earth.
Speaking of Jupiter, Europa, one of the planet's moons, intrigues astrobiologists because of its potential for having a habitable zone. Here to tell us more is Robert Pappalardo, a NASA scientist researching Europa.
Can there be life elsewhere? Where are the habitable environments in our solar system? Mars is an obvious place to think about, but so are the icy worlds of the outer solar system, where beneath their surfaces there may be liquid water oceans. The Europa Jupiter System Mission is a partnership between ESA and NASA to send 2 spacecraft to the Jupiter system, one to orbit Europa, the other to orbit Ganymede, to understand what we're phrasing as the emergence of habitable worlds around gas giants. The subsurface oceans are certainly the key driver for exploration of these worlds. Europa is a fascinating place with an ocean that might be only tens of kilometers below the surface and may communicate actively with the surface through eruptions, through icy convection, blobs of warm ice moving up to the surface, through cracking and breaking of the ice. So there could be signs on the surface of what's going on deep down below the surface. So what we can do with a spacecraft in orbit around Europa is measure how Europa flexes as it's stretched by Jupiter's gravity. That tells us something very specific about how stiff that ice shell is. And by how stiff it is, we can get a measure of its thickness. Europa is a maybe rarer example of an ocean in contact with a rocky mantle. Ganymede actually might be a more common example of an ocean where it's an ocean sandwich, ice above and below. Callisto, the relatively dead world, has not the level of activity that Europa and Ganymede have, yet we think that Callisto has an ocean beneath its surface. It's not out of the question that if there are liquid water oceans down there, and there's heat, and there's energy, that there could possibly be life. The Europa spacecraft will make 3 or 4 close flybys of Io, the most volcanically active world in our solar system. In fact, we might even be able to fly through one of these volcanic plumes and sample the material that's spewing out. And we're not going to forget the big guy either, Jupiter. We're going to be able to make observations of Jupiter and its rings as we orbit for about 2 years. What's really compelling about these worlds is our search for whether there is life elsewhere, not just in the solar system, but in the universe. Can these be habitable environments. That's really what drives these worlds to the top of the list of places to explore.
Did you know NASA's Viking missions to the planet Mars were part of the agency's exobiology program? Launched in 1975, each of the Viking landers included 3 biology experiments designed to look for possible signs of life in the Martian soil. Now you know.
Now it's time to find out what's up!
This month, Jupiter is the only planet visible in the evening sky, rising after sunset and setting before sunrise. In the late evening, look for it high in the southern sky. Check it out.
Now it's your turn. Check out this week's challenge on the NASA Now homepage.
This week, you and your team will play the part of astrobiologists, searching for possible habitable planets for humans. As part of your mission, you will use the Design a Planet computer simulation to create computer models of each possible habitable world. And don't forget, there's still time to enter one of NASA's waitlist challenges, but you'll have to hurry. The registration deadline is November 1st. For more information on these and other challenges, visit the NASA Now homepage.
Well, that's it for NASA Now. Be sure to tune in to the NASA Explorer School's virtual campus next week when astronaut Michael Foreman gives us the lowdown on the next shuttle mission. We'll see you then on NASA Now.
NASA Now comes to you from the virtual campus at NASA Explorer Schools.